What if the world around you isn't just a stage you walk across, but something that's actually interacting with you at every moment? Not in obvious ways, but subtly, quietly, through energy and attention? Imagine for a second that your everyday experience, from what you see when you open your eyes in the morning to the way people respond to you throughout the day, is not random, not fixed, but shaped by something you've been carrying all along: your awareness. This isn't some abstract idea meant to sound profound. It's something many scientists, mystics, and conscious creators have hinted at for decades. And now, more and more people are waking up to it. Could it be that reality isn't something happening to you, but something happening through you, guided and molded by your focus, your perception, and your energy? Maybe the challenges you've faced, the patterns that repeat, the feelings of stagnation or breakthrough weren't just circumstances. You may have had more influence than you realized. And what if you've been participating in the creation of your experience without even knowing it? The way you look at life, the way you hold your attention, the emotions you feed, the stories you tell yourself, they're not just thoughts passing through. They're instructions, signals, frequencies being sent out, and the world is responding in kind. Most people walk through life thinking they're reacting to what already is, not realizing that what already is may just be reflecting what they've been observing the whole time. Not observing with their eyes alone, but with their energy, with their inner lens, with the beliefs they've been holding quietly in the background. Now pause for a moment and consider this. If you've ever looked at something and felt a change, the moment you noticed it, or sensed a shift in a room, when your attention landed on someone, you've already experienced a glimpse of this phenomenon. There's something undeniable about how observation seems to influence the world, not just metaphorically, but energetically. Think of life like a movie playing out before you. You assume you're the character following a script, reacting to the scenes written by someone else. But what if you're also the director, the editor, the one holding the camera and deciding where to point it? What if every time you focus on something, whether it's love, fear, gratitude, or lack, you're not just witnessing it, you're reinforcing it, breathing energy into it, giving it a front row seat in your unfolding story? Now, this isn't about blame. This is about empowerment. Because once you see that your perspective matters, once you understand that your inner state is interacting with the outer world in real time, you begin to reclaim your seat at the creative table of life. You're not just here to survive and adapt. You're here to observe consciously, to tune your awareness, to witness your thoughts without becoming them, and to decide what stays in focus and what fades away. This might sound surprising at first, especially if you've been taught that reality is solid, fixed, and indifferent. But physics itself is telling us a different story. And long before science caught up, ancient traditions already understood this. They taught that consciousness is not inside the body, it surrounds and shapes it. That awareness is not passive, it is participatory. It moves through you and interacts with what you perceive. And the moment you start to recognize this, you unlock a kind of power that doesn't come from effort or control. It comes from clarity. It comes from presence. It comes from the ability to hold attention without judgment, to observe without immediately labeling, to allow without attachment. That is where transformation begins. You've been shaping your life with every glance, every assumption, every repeated thought. You just didn't know it, but now you do. And this moment right here could be your pivot point, the place where your old way of seeing starts to shift, where you stop asking why things keep happening to you and start exploring how you may be participating in their unfolding. This isn't just about changing your mindset. It's about shifting your position in the story, from the passive viewer to the conscious observer, from the one who endures to the one who co-creates. And the beautiful part is, Nothing outside of you has to change first. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment, the perfect condition, or the right person to come into your life. You already have the lens. You've always had the power to choose where your attention goes and what meaning you give to what. You see, this isn't about pretending that everything is perfect. It's about recognizing that your gaze carries weight. Your attention is energy, and energy shapes outcomes. Once you learn how to work with that, you're not just navigating life, you're crafting it. So the question is, are you ready to observe with intention? Are you willing to look beyond the surface and begin noticing what you've been unconsciously feeding with your focus? Because the moment you do, things begin to move. Subtle shifts become real changes. Possibilities that once felt distant start to unfold in front of you. You see clearer, you feel lighter, and you begin to remember something deep and ancient, that you are not here by accident. You are here to perceive, to influence, to expand, and to awaken. And that starts with becoming the observer. Let's go deeper, because now that you've opened the door to a new way of seeing, let's step further into one of the most surprising discoveries in modern science. A phenomenon that still leaves physicists and philosophers in awe of the double slit. Experiment. Though it sounds technical, its core insight is both simple and staggering. It's not something most people were taught in school, yet it holds one of the most profound keys to how we relate to reality itself. Here's how it goes. Scientists wanted to understand how particles behave at the smallest levels, so they fired individual electrons, tiny building blocks of matter, toward a barrier with two vertical slits in it. Behind that barrier was a screen to capture where the electrons landed. They expected each electron to behave like a small, solid ball, passing through one slit or the other, and forming a pattern that matched those paths. But that's not what happened. Instead, the electrons created an interference pattern, the kind you'd only see with waves, not particles. It was as if each electron split in two, passed through both slits at once, like a ripple of possibility, and then interfered with itself on the other side. This alone was mind-bending. But what truly shocked the scientists was what happened next, when they decided to observe which slit each electron passed through, to simply measure or watch. The process, the pattern changed completely. The wave-like behavior vanished. Suddenly, the electrons stopped acting like waves of potential and snapped into particle form, choosing just one path. Just by observing, without touching or interfering in any physical way, the very nature of the electron changed. The act of watching collapsed the wave into a particle. Possibility became one outcome. Potential transformed into form. It was as if the universe itself responded to attention, as though these tiny particles were aware of being seen. They weren't just behaving differently because something touched them. No physical force was applied. It was the observation alone. That shifted reality from a field of possibilities into a single measurable event. This is the heart of what scientists now call the observer effect. And while it sounds almost mystical, it's been repeated in labs all over the world. What does this mean for us? It means that at the most fundamental level, reality is not purely objective and independent. It is participatory. Your awareness, your act of paying attention, is part of the equation. You are not outside the system looking in. You are within it, influencing it, constantly choosing outcomes often, without even knowing you're doing it. When particles behave one way while unobserved and shift into something else the moment you look, it raises a powerful question. If something as small as an electron can respond to observation, what happens when you bring full, conscious attention to your thoughts, your emotions, your surroundings, your choices? In daily life, we rarely think of our attention as a creative force, but science suggests that it absolutely is. The way you observe shapes what you experience. When you expect to be overlooked, you see signs of rejection everywhere. When you anticipate beauty, you begin to notice it in the smallest places. When you fixate on fear, fear multiplies. Your attention doesn't just passively witness what is there. It plays an active role in how things unfold. Just like the electron, potential exists in multiple states until attention brings it into focus. And the moment that happens, the wave collapses. A single timeline is chosen. A reality emerges. And most of the time, you're not even aware that you've made that choice. You do it with your beliefs, with your assumptions, with the emotional tone you hold throughout the day. That's how powerful the observer effect really is. It's not limited to laboratory experiments. It's happening right now in your relationships, your career, your dreams, your doubts. Reality is not just showing up to greet you. It's mirroring back what you've been focusing on. Not in some magical way, but in a deeply energetic, responsive, and intelligent way. And once you realize that your attention carries this kind of influence, the game of life changes. You're no longer just reacting. You begin participating with purpose. You become aware of how you observe. You notice the filters you've been using. You see how you label what happens around you, and what those labels call into existence. It's one thing to hear about this experiment in a physics textbook. It's another to live it, to bring that same sense of mystery and awareness into your own life. Every time you pause to observe your reactions instead of acting on them, every time you hold space for a higher possibility rather than defaulting to old patterns, you're collapsing a different timeline. You're shaping the path ahead, not by force, but by perception. And that brings us to the next piece of this puzzle. Because now that you understand how the act of observation shapes the external world, what happens when you turn that lens inward? What if you became the observer of your own thoughts, the watcher of your inner world, not to judge or fix it, but simply to witness it? That is where true transformation begins. And in the next segment, we'll explore how shifting from automatic reaction to conscious observation can awaken a level of awareness that changes everything. What you're about to discover might just shift the way you see your entire life. Now that you understand how observation can influence even the tiniest elements of matter, it's time to turn that understanding inward. Because the truth is, you've been creating your reality all along. You just haven't been fully conscious of it. Every day, your attention moves from one moment to the next, landing on thoughts, emotions, conversations, news, doubts, dreams, frustrations, and hopes. And each time your attention locks onto something, you are effectively sending a signal to the universe saying, this is what matters. This is what I'm available for. This is the frequency I'm living in. Your focus becomes your filter, and your filter becomes your experience. If your attention is filled with worry, the world around you starts to reflect that tension. If it's filled with lack, you begin noticing more absence than presence. If it's fueled by self-doubt, then even your victories feel incomplete. Not because the world is against you, but because your inner lens is shaping the meaning of what you see. This doesn't mean you're to blame for every difficulty you face. It means you're more powerful than you thought. It means your awareness is not passive. It's a dynamic force, tuning into frequencies, forming patterns, and inviting in experiences that match your inner state. The thoughts you revisit the most, the emotions you rehearse without realizing, the assumptions you rarely question, they all become subtle commands sent into the field of potential, collapsing into form through your unconscious focus. Over time, this creates something that feels unchangeable, something we call identity. But identity is not fixed. It's fluid, and it's built from repetition. So when you unknowingly observe your life through the same story every day, whether it's I'm not enough, or things never work out for me, or no one sees my value, you are observing a version of reality that continues to reinforce itself. And because you keep seeing it, you believe it's the truth. But it's not the only truth. It's the result of what you've been feeding with your attention. When you finally step back and become the witness of your own patterns, instead of blindly living inside them, you begin to see just how much you've been shaping without awareness. You realize that even your fears have power because you've been watching them, energizing them, expecting them. And as long as you keep observing through that lens, life has no choice but to mirror it back. But here's the shift. Once you start observing intentionally, things change. You begin to notice the moment before the reaction. You feel the space between thought and emotion. You step outside the loop you've been repeating. And that is the moment where power returns. You're no longer just responding to life. You're choosing how to meet it. You're observing with clarity instead of habit. You're selecting new possibilities instead of defaulting to old ones. You start to realize that the real shift happens not when the world around you changes, but when the way you see it does. Because the observer defines the experience. When you observe joy, you find more of it. When you observe resilience, you embody it. When you observe growth, even in the hardest moments, those moments begin to serve a greater purpose. This doesn't mean you force yourself to think positively all the time. It means you learn to hold space for a higher view, even when things are messy. You learn to witness pain without being swallowed by it. You learn to stay open to beauty, even when things feel uncertain. That's the practice of conscious observation. It's not about denying reality. It's about engaging with it from a place of awareness. Because your gaze is creative, your attention is not neutral. And when you begin using it with purpose, the reality that responds is no longer just a reflection of old stories. It becomes a canvas for new ones. So yes, you've been creating without knowing it. But now you do know. And that changes everything. You're not just a participant in life. You're a collaborator. You're not just reacting. You're influencing. You're not just seeing what is. You're shaping what will be. The act of conscious observation is the beginning of transformation. And it starts right here, right now. So ask yourself, what have I been observing on repeat? What story have I been reinforcing with my attention? And most importantly, what new version of life am I now ready to witness and to form? Because you've been observing unconsciously. But now you can start observing with intention. And that's when reality begins to respond in a whole new way. But what's really happening behind the scenes when you place your attention on something? Why does the universe care whether you're watching or not? In the next part, we'll go deeper into the science and discover the power you've had all along. Let's take a closer look at what's really happening in the background of reality, because everything you see, touch, and experience is not as solid as it seems. At the smallest level of existence, the universe operates in ways that defy what we've been taught about cause and effect. In quantum physics, there is a concept called superposition. This simply means that a single particle, like an electron, doesn't exist in one fixed state until it is measured. Instead, it exists in many possible states at the same time. You can think of it like this. Imagine a light switch that is both on and off at the same time until someone walks over and checks its position. It's not just one or the other. It holds both possibilities in a state of potential. That's superposition. At the quantum level, particles act more like clouds of possibilities than tiny solid objects. They move like waves of energy, not yet settled into any one position. These waves are described by something called a wave function. You can picture the wave function as a kind of map, showing the range of outcomes that a particle might take and how likely each one is. But none of those outcomes are final until something happens. And that something is you. More specifically, your awareness. The act of observing collapses the wave function. It forces the universe to pick one result from the sea of maybes. This is known as the collapse of the wave function. The moment consciousness is present, the possibilities condense into one specific outcome. Without that conscious observation, the particle stays in its fuzzy, probabilistic state. What this means is that the world around you, at its core, is not made up of hard, unchangeable facts. It is made of probabilities that are waiting to be chosen. Reality, before you observe it, exists more like a soup of potential than a fixed script. Your awareness, your attention, acts like a spotlight. It brings one version of reality into focus, leaving the others in the background. This is not just some weird behavior that happens far away in a lab. It is the very mechanism behind how experience is formed. The same principle applies to your life. Every moment, you are surrounded by possibilities. Paths you could take, versions of yourself you could become, outcomes that are still fluid. But what you focus on, what you expect, what you believe to be true, determines which of those possibilities takes form. Just like the particle choosing a path when it's observed, your life follows the path your attention selects. And here's the deeper truth. You're not just choosing once. You're choosing all the time. Every thought you revisit, every story you tell yourself, every emotion you feed is another observation, another instruction to the field of potential, another wave function collapsing into form. If you wake up and focus on all the things that stress you out, your reality begins to show more of that. If you dwell on past failures, your present experience starts to carry that weight. If you constantly observe yourself as limited, stuck, or not enough, then the world reflects that back to you. But the same law applies when you shift your attention. If you begin to observe yourself with curiosity instead of judgment, the wave shifts. If you start to expect ease instead of chaos, the field responds. If you focus on growth, peace, or creativity, those paths begin to strengthen. The observer effect is not just about particles. It's about the human experience. The universe is not assigning you a fixed reality. It is responding to the quality of your focus. At every moment, it is offering you a menu of possible outcomes. Your consciousness is the one choosing from that menu, often without realizing it. Once you understand this, the idea of being stuck loses power. You begin to see that many of the limits you believed were absolute were simply the result of where your awareness has been pointing. When you bring consciousness to those unconscious habits, the wave of potential begins to move differently. New doors open. Patterns shift. Energy flows in new directions. You are no longer living on autopilot. You are participating with awareness. You are collapsing waves with purpose. This doesn't mean that everything instantly changes, but it does mean that you're no longer just reacting. You're aligning with possibilities that were always available, just waiting for you to notice them. You are the point where possibility becomes form. You are the lens through which energy becomes experience. And this power doesn't come from force. It comes from focus. It comes from the willingness to hold your awareness on the outcome you want long enough for the field to respond. The wave doesn't collapse randomly. It follows your observation, which means everything exists in potential until consciousness chooses a path. So if everything exists as a wave of potential until consciousness makes a selection, then who or what exactly is doing the selecting? The answer may be more personal than you think. According to some of the most respected minds in quantum theory, the key player in this mystery is not just energy or math, but awareness itself. Niels Bohr, one of the founding fathers of quantum mechanics, once stated that there is no definite reality until something is measured. Until that moment, things don't exist as facts. They exist as probabilities. Bohr believed that our interaction with reality doesn't simply reveal what's there. It helps determine what becomes real. His insights cracked open the idea that consciousness is not outside the equation. It's central to how the equation works. Taking that idea even further, the renowned physicist John Wheeler introduced the concept of a participatory universe. He proposed that we don't live in a universe that's already formed and simply waiting for us to walk through it. Instead, we live in a reality that responds to our presence, our attention, and our choices. In Wheeler's words, the universe is not a machine. It's an evolving system in which the observer plays an active role. That means you are not just observing life. You are influencing which version of life shows up. You are not standing on the sidelines. You are part of the creative process. And what makes this truly profound is that it's not about grand actions or dramatic gestures. The universe responds to your inner focus, your silent decisions, your subtle shifts in belief and perspective. When you direct your awareness toward a thought, an outcome, or an identity, you are selecting from the field of possibilities. You are collapsing the wave function, not just in the lab, but in your everyday experience. This selection does not require effort. It requires clarity. You do not have to force the universe to respond. You simply have to become more aware of what you are consistently observing within yourself and in the world around you. Are you observing through the lens of limitation or expansion? Are you noticing what's missing or what's already growing? Are you focused on old patterns or new potentials? These choices may seem small, but they accumulate. They send a signal into the field of energy and begin to shape what takes form. And the deeper truth is, you've already been doing this. You've been choosing realities based on the way you see yourself and the world. You've been unconsciously collapsing wave functions every time you said, "This is just how life is," or "I guess I'm not meant for more." But now, you're starting to see that you can choose differently. You can shift what you're observing. You can become intentional, because your consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it selects it. Every belief you hold, every emotional pattern you revisit, every assumption you carry, acts like a lens shaping what version of the world reflects back to you. That's why two people can walk through the same situation and have completely different experiences. One sees chaos, the other sees opportunity. One feels powerless, the other feels creative. The situation is the same, but the observer is not. Your consciousness, when tuned with clarity and purpose, becomes the architect of what unfolds. And this is not about pretending or denying challenges. It's about understanding that your inner state influences how those challenges move through your life. When you approach life with intention, your observation becomes an instrument of creation. You're no longer reacting to the script. You're rewriting it in real time. You don't have to invent new realities out of nowhere. You simply align with the ones that already exist as potential. And you do that with your attention, your emotions, and your belief systems. Reality is not asking you to be perfect. It's asking you to be present. It's asking you to take ownership of your focus. It's asking you to remember that you're not just watching life happen. You're collapsing it into form, one choice at a time. The quantum field is rich with versions of you that already hold the peace, the power, the clarity, the success, the freedom you seek. The only thing standing between you and that version is the direction of your awareness. This is not just theory. It's a practice, and it begins by noticing what you've been habitually selecting, what you've been calling real through repetition, what you've been reinforcing by observing without questioning. When you wake up to that, you unlock the ability to select something new, not because the old reality is wrong, but because a better one is now within reach. And the more often you select it, the more real it becomes. This is how change begins, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. So what happens when you stop operating on autopilot and start observing yourself from within? What changes? When you tune into your thoughts, emotions, and identity with clarity and intention. That's what we'll explore next, because the outer shift begins with the inner observer. Have you ever stopped and really listened to the voice in your head? The constant stream of thoughts that narrate your life, question your decisions, judge your actions, and often whisper fear when you least expect it? And have you ever realized that voice is not always accurate, not always helpful, and definitely not always kind? Now here is the deeper truth. If you can step back and notice your thoughts, then you are not your thoughts. The moment you become aware of thinking, you are no longer just the thinker. You become the witness, and that shift in awareness is not small. It is the doorway to freedom. Most people move through life fused with their thoughts, reacting without pause, assuming that everything their mind tells them is real and worth believing. But once you start to observe those thoughts instead of obey them, you begin to realize they are just mental activity. They are passing clouds in the sky of your awareness. You don't have to chase them. You don't have to fight them. You can simply notice them and let them move. This is the awakening of the inner observer, the quiet space within you that is always present, always watching, but rarely noticed. It is the same part of you that can hear the noise, yet remain still, that can feel emotion without drowning in it, that can be aware without becoming overwhelmed. This inner observer is not a role you have to play or a skill you need to learn. It is who you already are beneath the noise. When you reconnect with that space, you stop being dragged around by the old loops of fear, worry, comparison, and regret. You begin to respond rather than react. You create a gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap is your power to choose. This is the foundation of mindfulness, and you don't need to sit cross-legged for hours to experience it. All it takes is one moment of presence, one breath of awareness, one pause where you simply notice what's moving through your mind without judgment. In that pause, you remember that you are the awareness behind the thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. And this is not just a nice idea. It changes everything. Because when you stop identifying with the mental chatter, you create space for clarity, for peace, for creativity. You allow insight to rise from the deeper parts of your consciousness. You open the channel to your higher mind. Most people spend their days reacting to everything that happens around them. But when you become the observer of your own inner world, you begin to notice what triggers you, what patterns repeat, and where your energy leaks. You begin to take your power back, not by controlling the world, but by mastering your attention. The mind loves to stay busy. It feeds on problems to solve and stories to tell. But when you anchor into the observer, that busyness loses its grip. You begin to live from a different frequency, one that is calm, centered, and steady, even when the world is not. This is the first step toward real transformation. It is the shift from autopilot to conscious living, from being lost in thought to being fully here, from being at the mercy of emotions to becoming aware of their energy. And here's the beauty of it. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment to start. You don't need a silent room or special technique. Right now, as you listen, you can begin. You can notice your breath. You can become aware of your body. You can watch your mind without judging it. And just like that, you've stepped into presence. You've activated the part of you that sees clearly, feels deeply, and chooses consciously. You've become the inner observer. And from that place, everything begins to change. Not because the world outside shifts, but because your relationship to it does. You start to understand that peace is not the absence of thoughts, but the awareness of them. That power is not in control, but in attention. That transformation is not in doing more, but in being more awake. This is not about escaping your thoughts. It's about recognizing you are bigger than them, that you are the sky, not the storm, that you are the stillness underneath the sound. And when you start to live from this place of inner observation, you begin to influence your energy field in real time. You start to shift your emotional frequency. Because awareness alters energy, you start to recognize that emotions are not enemies. They are signals. They are waves of energy passing through, and the way you meet them determines the vibration you stay in. This leads us into the next layer of practice, where your emotional responses become keys to transformation. Because when you feel something intense and choose not to react automatically, but to pause and witness it, you step into a higher vibration. So now the question becomes, what happens when you apply this inner awareness to your emotional world? What changes when you witness your feelings without resistance? In the next segment, we'll explore how the act of simply observing your emotions can shift your frequency, open new pathways, and bring you back to your true power. Because transformation doesn't begin when things change. It begins the moment you stop reacting and start observing what's already within. Once you begin to recognize that you are not your thoughts, but the one who observes them, the next doorway opens. That doorway leads you into the realm of emotion, where transformation becomes deeply personal and powerfully energetic. Emotions are not random reactions. They are energy in motion. They carry frequency. Every emotional state you feel radiates a vibration into your field, shaping how you experience your world and how the world reflects itself back to you. Joy carries a high, expansive frequency. Fear, a tight and contracting one. Gratitude opens. Anger closes. When you unconsciously react to emotions, you release energy that reinforces your current state. That means if you're in fear and you act from fear, you generate more situations that confirm fear. If you're frustrated and lash out, you strengthen the pattern of frustration in your energy field. This is what keeps people trapped in emotional loops, repeating experiences they say they want to escape. But when you pause and witness an emotion, instead of reacting to it, you interrupt that cycle. You shift the frequency before it becomes action. This is where your awareness becomes a tool of transmutation. You are not here to suppress your feelings or pretend they don't exist. You're here to meet them with presence so they can rise and pass through. Think of emotional transmutation as the alchemy of inner life. When you observe an emotion with full attention, but no judgment, you change its impact on your system. The same energy that once felt heavy begins to soften. What was once chaotic begins to organize itself. The act of watching transforms the wave. This is not about overthinking or analyzing your emotions to death. It's about being with them long enough to let them move without controlling you. Emotions are not problems. They are signals. They are reminders that your system is reacting to something. When you meet that signal with awareness, you give yourself a chance to respond from clarity, not from a survival reflex. Let's bring this into the real world. Imagine someone says something that stings. The usual reaction might be anger, withdrawal, or immediate defense. But if you pause for just 3 seconds and ask, who is noticing this feeling, something opens. You shift from being inside the reaction to standing just outside it, where choice lives. That moment of pause rewires your emotional blueprint. Over time, you become less reactive and more responsive. You begin to move with intentional frequency. That's when energy starts to work with you, not against you. Your field becomes clearer, steadier, more magnetic to what aligns with your peace. Because feelings are frequencies, and your frequency is your signal. Whatever signal you hold most consistently is what life responds to. This is why emotional mastery is not about force. It's about awareness. You don't have to fight your sadness. You can feel it with grace. You don't have to resist anger. You can breathe through it with presence. You don't need to fix yourself. You only need to observe yourself with compassion. That's where real integration happens. Because the moment you bring awareness to an emotion, it begins to shift. not because you changed the outside world, but because you changed how you held the energy within. Your body relaxes, your breath deepens, your perception widens, and in that space, something new becomes possible. This is not always easy, especially when the emotion is strong, but that's exactly when this practice matters most. The bigger the wave, the more power you reclaim by riding it consciously instead of letting it crash into others. This is emotional transmutation in action, and the more you do it, the more you rise out of reactive patterns and into embodied presence. You stop being a product of emotional habits and start becoming a co-creator of your vibration. Over time, your nervous system adapts, your brain rewires, your energy becomes more coherent. This is how you build the frequency of transformation. One pause at a time, one moment of awareness at a time, one breath of stillness in the middle of emotion. And as you live from that space, your inner observer becomes stronger. It becomes your anchor, your ally, your portal into deeper awareness. Because when you can hold presence through feeling, you are no longer ruled by emotion. You are working with energy as a conscious participant. And this takes you beyond managing emotions into mastering them. Not by suppressing what you feel, but by elevating how you meet what you feel. This is where power begins to return to you, not in the form of control, but in the form of alignment. The practice is simple. When a strong emotion arises, pause. Take 3 conscious breaths. Ask yourself, who is noticing this feeling? Don't try to fix it. Just observe. Let the energy show itself to you. Let it move without story. Let it shift. As you hold it in awareness, this becomes a daily ritual of transformation. And as you practice this more and more, you open access to a higher level of awareness. A state of being where your emotional energy flows through you instead of controlling you. A state where you begin to tune into a higher mind. That's where we're going next. Because once you've learned to observe thought and transmute emotion, you unlock a new level of perception. One that isn't based on fear or habit, but on wisdom, intuition, and vision. In the next segment, we'll explore how connecting to your higher self opens the path to deep alignment and powerful change from the inside out. Once you begin to meet your emotions with presence instead of resistance, something subtle but powerful starts to unfold. You notice that you're no longer stuck in the same emotional loops. You begin to respond instead of react. And in that space between feeling and action, you access something deeper. That space is not just stillness. It is intelligence. It is clarity. It is the opening to your higher mind. The truth is, beneath the layers of thought and emotion lies a greater awareness, a part of you that is not conditioned by the past or controlled by fear. This part of you sees patterns without being trapped in them. It speaks through intuition, not logic. It feels truth, not just facts. It guides you not with urgency, but with deep knowing. And you can access this part of you the moment you become aware of being aware. That is when transformation begins, because you are no longer operating from reaction. You're operating from choice, from alignment, from inner clarity. This is what it means to activate the higher self. It's not some mystical version of you that lives far away. It's the version that already exists beyond survival, beyond programming, beyond the need to prove or protect. It's the version of you that chooses presence over panic, perspective over habit, and purpose over fear. And the gateway to that version is observation. When you witness your own thoughts and feelings with neutrality, you stop feeding the mental stories that keep you small. You dissolve the emotional charges that pull you out of balance. And in that calm center, your higher awareness begins to speak. It might not shout, it often whispers. But it is always clear, always aligned, and always guiding you toward your highest path. That's why the practice of pausing is so much more than a technique. It's a doorway. Every time you stop and breathe before reacting, you are stepping into the driver's seat of your consciousness. You are training your system to trust presence over programming. And as this becomes your new normal, you begin to live in resonance with your higher frequency. That shift changes how you relate to the world. You no longer seek external validation because your compass is internal. You no longer fear uncertainty because you are anchored in awareness. You no longer fight life because you're aligned with its deeper flow. This is not a concept to understand. It's a state to live. And the more you embody it, the more your reality begins to mirror back the peace, clarity, and direction you hold within. You stop chasing. You start aligning. You stop reacting. You start choosing. You stop seeking permission. You start listening to your own inner guidance. This is how you rise above instinct and into conscious creation, not by rejecting your human experience, but by integrating it with awareness. Your past no longer defines you. Your emotions no longer control you. Your thoughts no longer distract you. Instead, you hold all of them within the spacious field of presence. And in that space, your true self comes online. The part of you that can see clearly, speak honestly, create boldly, and love freely. That's the version of you the world needs. The one who is awake, aware, and aligned. But you don't get there by force. You get there by noticing, by choosing again and again to return to presence, by trusting that who you are beneath the noise is enough. So here's the invitation. Let your pause be your practice. Let your breath be your anchor. Let your awareness be your guide. Try the observer pause several times a day, especially when challenges rise or emotions feel loud. It takes only a moment. But in that moment, everything shifts because presence resets your energy. It rewires your mind. It reconnects you to truth. And every time you choose it, you become more rooted in your higher self. That is what real transformation looks like. It's not flashy. It's not dramatic. It's consistent. It's steady. It's honest. And it happens from the inside out. The more you choose it, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, living from your higher mind isn't something you practice. It's just who you are. And when that happens, your outer world begins to rearrange itself around the new frequency you carry, not because you controlled everything, but because you aligned with what was already true inside you. That's the power of observation. That's the magic of presence. And that's the doorway to freedom. You're not here to control everything. You're here to notice, choose, and align. That is real power. And now that you've awakened this deeper awareness, the question becomes, what has been keeping you from living this way more often? What unconscious patterns, beliefs, or emotional loops have kept you operating from survival instead of creation? In the next part, we'll uncover those invisible scripts and reveal the hidden habits that shape your reality, so you can begin releasing what no longer aligns and step fully into the power of conscious living. What if the world you experience every single day is not just a reflection of what happens around you, but a direct result of what you consistently focus on within you? Deep inside your brain exists a network called the reticular activating system, or RAS, a small yet powerful bundle of neurons sitting at the top of your brainstem. And its job is to act like a filter between your conscious mind and the flood of sensory information surrounding you at all times. Every second, your body receives millions of bits of data from your environment, but your conscious mind can only process a tiny fraction of it. So how does your brain decide what to notice and what to ignore? That's where RAS comes in. It decides what's important based on what you repeatedly think about, what you care about, and what you emotionally attach to. Imagine deciding you want to buy a red car, and suddenly you start seeing red cars everywhere. even though nothing about the world has changed. That's your Rias in action. The red cars were always there, but now your mind is tuned to notice them because your focus has shifted. Now apply that to everything else in your life. If you consistently focus on what's missing, what's wrong, or what could go badly, your mind will start showing you more of that. It's not because the world is negative. It's because your attention is being trained over and over to highlight and amplify problems, risks, and limitations. Your AS is learning from you. It's not deciding for you. It's following the energetic blueprint. You feed it through your thoughts, your beliefs, and your emotions. And this means something deeply empowering. It means you are not passively observing reality. You are actively training your mind to filter what becomes visible in your world. If you always feel like opportunities never come your way, check where your attention has been. If you always expect relationships to fail, notice what emotional patterns you keep feeding. Your mind is loyal. It will filter life to reflect what you expect to see. And expectations are just thoughts you keep practicing. When you begin to consciously redirect your focus, something begins to shift, not just in your thoughts, but in your frequency, because energy follows attention. When you give consistent focus to peace, you start noticing things that support your calm. When you tune into gratitude, you begin spotting more reasons to be thankful. It's not magic. It's your biology syncing with your energy. This is why mindset alone is never enough if it lacks emotional alignment. The real shift happens when your thoughts and your energy begin to tell the same story. That's when your RAS recalibrates. That's when your nervous system stabilizes. And that's when your external life starts reflecting back the internal harmony you've built. But this also works the other way. If you're constantly focused on what's missing, even without realizing it, your body starts to match that signal. You feel anxious. You lose clarity. You attract the same patterns you say you're trying to avoid. So the invitation is simple but powerful. Begin training your focus like a sacred ritual. Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Ask yourself throughout the day, what am I tuned into right now? Is it possibility or fear? Is it limitation or expansion? Is it a past loop or a future vision? Because wherever you place your attention, your energy follows. And wherever your energy flows, reality begins to respond. This is not about ignoring what's real. It's about choosing what becomes more real to you. Your ray is not the enemy. It's the gatekeeper, and you are the one giving it instructions. So train it to find the good. Train it to see opportunity. Train it to seek expansion. And do it not once, but repeatedly. Let this become your new normal, your new default, your new energetic signature. The more you direct your focus with intention, the more your inner world upgrades, and your outer world sinks to match. The quality of your experience is not determined by what happens around you. It's shaped by what you continuously choose to focus on. What you tune into becomes louder in your world. And that's why shifting your focus is not just positive thinking. It's vibrational alignment at a neural level. It's the science of energy meeting the intelligence of your biology. It's the moment your perception becomes your greatest tool for transformation. And when you start practicing this daily, your life doesn't just feel different. It becomes different. Because you've shifted the filter through which your entire reality flows. Every moment you are broadcasting a signal, and that signal is shaped by how you feel, what you think, and most importantly, what you focus on. When your focus is unconscious and reactive, especially in times of stress or fear, your frequency naturally drops to match that emotional state. And since reality tends to reflect back your dominant frequency, you begin to notice more of the same low-level experiences repeating. It's not punishment, it's a pattern. It's resonance. You attract what you're tuned to, and the more unaware you are of your own energy, the easier it is to fall into the trap of recycling the same emotions, same reactions, and same outcomes. But when you choose to observe with clarity, to pause, to shift your inner dialogue, everything begins to recalibrate. Focus is not just attention, it is direction. When you place that direction with purpose, you are steering your frequency. Imagine reality as a mirror that does not reflect what you wish for, but who you are being in each moment. Not who you want to be, but who you are emotionally aligned with. That mirror is honest. It does not respond to your surface thoughts. It responds to your dominant vibration. So when life feels chaotic or stuck, the invitation is not to fight the mirror, but to shift what you're bringing to it. That begins with how you tell your story. The words you use to describe your experiences shape how you feel about them. And how you feel begins to determine what becomes familiar in your life. This is where a simple but powerful practice comes in. It's called the Frequency Reframe Journal. Once a day, take one situation in your life that feels frustrating, disappointing, or challenging. Write it down as honestly as you can, without filtering. Let your emotions speak clearly. Then, on the next line, ask yourself a new question. What else could this mean? What is this moment asking me to grow into? Instead of labeling the situation as a setback, try seeing it as a reset. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" try, "What is this showing me about who I'm becoming?" This isn't about ignoring the hard parts or pretending they don't hurt. This is about choosing a new lens, a new frequency to engage with them. You are not lying to yourself. You are empowering yourself. You are taking responsibility for how you interpret your world. That shift in interpretation changes how you feel, and how you feel shifts your energy. And your energy is your magnetic field. That's how reality starts to move. New interpretations bring new emotions. New emotions raise your frequency. And a higher frequency unlocks different versions of reality that you couldn't perceive before. Suddenly, solutions show up where there were only problems. Opportunities appear where there was only resistance. Conversations shift. People respond differently. Your mirror begins to reflect something new, not because the world changed overnight, but because you did. This practice of reframing is like training your inner storyteller to serve your evolution, not your limitations. And when done daily, it begins to rewire your brain, redirect your nervous system, and recondition your RAS to filter life through possibility instead of fear. Over time, your new internal story becomes your new external pattern, and that pattern creates momentum. You no longer wait for life to feel good in order to shift. You shift internally so life reflects your upgraded frequency. And that is emotional intelligence in action. Not forced positivity, but conscious resonance. The discipline of pausing before labeling, the courage to find meaning even in discomfort, the decision to reframe instead of repeat. These are not just habits. They are spiritual technologies. The more you use them, the more you access your creative power. So what happens when you begin using these tools daily? Not just when things feel easy, but especially when things feel heavy. In the next part, we'll walk through practical methods to integrate these habits into your routine, so you can live from higher frequency no matter what shows up. Everything around you exists in a sea of potential until you decide to tune in. Reality, at its most fundamental level, is not solid and fixed. It is fluid, vibrating, and waiting for instruction. In the quantum world, this is known as the wave function, a field of probabilities, not certainties. Every version of every possible outcome is there, existing as pure potential, until one factor steps in to collapse that potential into form. That factor is observation, but not just any observation, not passive watching. True quantum observation is energetic, it is vibrational, and in the realm of manifestation, that observation comes from within you. It comes through how you feel, what you imagine, and most importantly, what you believe to be possible. The act of truly feeling into a future, of immersing yourself emotionally in the version of life you wish to live, is the same as collapsing that wave function into a specific outcome. You are not simply visualizing, you are selecting. You are not making something appear out of nowhere. You are aligning with what was already possible and drawing it into focus by tuning your inner frequency to match it. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between an experience that is real and one that is vividly imagined with emotion. That is the power of inner observation. When you imagine yourself walking through a life you desire, and you breathe into it, see it, feel the textures, sense the emotions, speak the words as if they are already being said, your energy begins to match that experience. And in that moment, you are no longer hoping for it. You are embodying it. This is not wishful thinking. This is quantum alignment. The outer world only becomes clear when your inner world becomes steady. Every day, you are already observing. You are already collapsing timelines. The problem is most people are doing it unconsciously. They observe from fear. They focus on what could go wrong. They tune into what they lack. And without knowing it, they repeatedly select versions of reality that match those emotions. They see a future in their mind filled with doubt, and the body responds with tension. That feeling becomes the signal. The universe, neutral and responsive, reflects it back, not as punishment, but as a match. But here's the shift. You can choose what you tune into. You can close your eyes and walk through a scene where things work out, where you are free, supported, alive, and calm. You can generate the emotion of having it now, not someday, not if, now. That emotional signal becomes your order to the quantum field. And because energy speaks louder than words, you begin to draw that experience toward you. When your feelings and your inner picture align, the world begins to move. The people, the chances, the timing, all start adjusting to your frequency. Not because you forced them to, but because you became the version of yourself who belongs in that life. The future does not come to you. You rise into it. You become it. You match it. And matching is how you manifest. This is why feeling is not just a side effect. It is the language of reality. Feeling is the signal. Attention is the selector. You choose the timeline by living it in your energy first. And the more often you return to that frequency, the more familiar it becomes. It stops being a wish and becomes your new baseline. Your nervous system relaxes into it. Your mind accepts it as safe. Your actions begin to align with it. You speak from it. You move from it. And little by little, your life bends toward it. This is how observation becomes creation. This is why imagining without emotion rarely leads to change. And why emotion without vision gets scattered. You need both, the image and the charge, the focus and the feeling. Together, they create a magnetic signature that cannot be ignored. This is not about forcing outcomes. It is about becoming the type of person who naturally experiences them. And that shift starts inside. So the next time you sit down to dream, don't just see it. Feel it. Don't just wish for it. Become it. Because in the quantum world, what you embody becomes what you experience. And what you observe with feeling becomes the path your reality follows. You are already doing this. The question is, are you doing it on purpose? In the next part, we're going to explore why this emotional alignment is more powerful than mental wishing, and how the law of vibration holds the true key to manifestation. Not by attracting what you want, but by tuning into what you are. So if your attention and your emotion collapse potential into form, then your true manifesting power lies not in what you say you want, but in what you actually feel. This brings us to a vital distinction that is often misunderstood. The law of attraction gets all the attention, yet it's only the surface of something much deeper. People often believe that thinking positive thoughts or repeating affirmations will somehow bring their desires closer. But thinking alone does not create. Wishing without alignment is like placing an order with no address. The universe does not respond to your words. It responds to your frequency. And frequency is set by your dominant emotions, your embodied beliefs, and your internal imagery. This is the law of vibration. Everything is energy, including you. Every thought, every feeling, every belief emits a frequency. And that frequency becomes the signal you broadcast into the field. You do not attract what you hope for. You attract what you are in resonance with. This is why two people can say the same affirmation, but only one of them sees real change. The difference is not in the words, but in the vibration behind them. If you say, "I am abundant," but deep down feel unworthy, fearful, or doubtful, your emotional signal cancels out your mental wish. You are sending mixed messages to the field. The dominant vibration always wins. That is why understanding the law of vibration is so essential. It teaches you that alignment matters more than intention alone. The universe mirrors back your inner state. It reflects not just your desires, but the frequency you live in every day. When you carry the vibration of lack, even if you speak of abundance, you will notice more situations that reinforce that scarcity. When you hold the energy of not being enough, even if you envision success, you will find yourself pulled into patterns that confirm your doubts. But the moment your inner signal changes, so does the reflection. Your energy instructs your experience. Your state of being is the magnet. And this is why real manifestation begins with inner alignment. Not with forcing outcomes, but by matching the energy of what you want as if it were already here. This is not pretending. It is remembering. It is remembering how powerful your frequency truly is, and how deeply it shapes your external world. When your beliefs, your emotions, and your mental images come into harmony, you create a coherent field. That field influences your actions, your choices, your habits, and the opportunities that find you. Life becomes less about chasing and more about aligning. This is not about suppressing your current feelings or faking positivity. It is about choosing to feel from your future instead of reacting from your past. It is about shifting your vibration deliberately so you can move in the direction of the life you desire. The law of attraction says you can have what you want. The law of vibration shows you how. It teaches you that becoming is more powerful than wanting, that the emotional blueprint you carry inside becomes the architecture of your world. So how? Do you shift your vibration if your current reality seems stuck in lack or fear? How do you stop just imagining and start feeling your future into being? That is where the next segment takes us. Because there is a method. There is a way to reprogram your emotional field through conscious observation. A way to retrain your energy to match what you truly want instead of repeating what you have already known. In the next part, we will walk through a powerful daily practice that helps you link thought and feeling, image and emotion, desire and embodiment. This practice is not about escaping reality. It is about upgrading it from the inside out. Because when you begin to observe your dream life through the lens of already being there, when you let your heart and nervous system feel the experience, before it arrives, you stop chasing and start magnetizing. You stop broadcasting lack and start becoming a signal of fulfillment. That is how quantum creation truly works. And it begins with what you do in the still moments when no one is watching. When you choose to tune into the version of you who already has the clarity, the joy, the freedom, the love, you become a vibrational match. And reality has no choice but to reflect it. Get ready, because next we go beyond theory into embodied practice. In segment 5.3, we'll show you how to bring this all together with a simple but transformative technique that aligns your visualization with your energy and helps you live from the frequency of your future right now. Now that you understand how vibration matters more than mere wishing, it is time to step into a practice that brings this principle to life: visualization paired with emotional synchronization. It begins with a simple question: what version of life do you genuinely desire to live? Not a vague dream, but a vivid scenario that resonates deeply with your heart. Choose one clear vision. It might be waking up in a home filled with warmth, stepping onto a stage to share your truth, having a peaceful conversation with someone you care about, or feeling fully energized and aligned in your body. The more specific and emotionally compelling the scene, the more effective the practice becomes. Once you have your vision, find a quiet moment to close your eyes and bring it to life. Start with the physical details. Where are you? What are you wearing? What time of day is it? What sounds fill your space? The hum of energy, birds outside, soft music. Then move inward to sense the textures beneath your hands or feet, the temperature of the air, the rhythm of your breath. Begin noticing the emotions that naturally arise as you imagine this scene. Joy, ease, contentment, pride, love, whatever feeling belongs to that version of you. Give yourself permission to feel it as if it is real right now. Let the sensation of having arrived into your desired experience saturate your body and mind. This is not daydreaming. It is vibrational calibration. You are collapsing a timeline toward your desired outcome by living it energetically before it appears externally. Stay with this for at least 5 minutes or longer if time allows. The key is presence. Don't let your mind wander to doubts or distractions. If thoughts arise questioning the how, bring your focus back to the feeling. Anchor yourself in the version of you that already lives this reality. When you can move from imagination into emotion and momentum, you are honoring the quantum law that feeling signals matter, and you serve as the selector. The version of you you're watching is the version of you you're becoming. This phrase is not a motivational quote. It is a quantum mechanic of your experience. When you consistently imagine and feel a version of yourself living that reality, you are energetically merging with that version across timelines. You begin to adopt its energy signature, its habits, its presence. Your nervous system acclimates to it. Your behaviors begin to reflect it naturally. You take aligned action from the frequency instead of reacting from fear or lack. If you find resistance, if doubt, fear of failure, overwhelm, or confusion surface, observe them without judgment. Let those parts of you be felt, witnessed, and held by your awareness. Then gently return to your desired scene and the feeling that matches it. Each cycle of pause, observation, and re-immersion deepens your alignment. Over time, you are no longer calling for your future. You are becoming it. And what seems to show up eventually in your external world is not random. It is your vibrational echo, your creative blueprint returning to you. This practice is not about achieving material rewards. It is about embodying your highest self and remembering who you are at your core. The more you practice, the more you live from a place of aligned presence. You shift from trying to get something to becoming something. You move from hoping to living, from wanting to being. This is the alchemy of true manifestation. Consistency matters. 10 minutes in the morning after waking, 5 minutes before sleep, a quick calibration before a meeting. These pockets of practice keep your energy aligned throughout the day. They help you stay anchored when challenges arise. They give you an instant return to center when your field starts to wobble. And yes, the outer world begins to shift to match, but the transformation begins inside. When energy meets energy in harmony, miracles become momentum. You become the bridge between possibility and reality. You become the observer and the creator. You become the energy that rearranges, matter moment by moment. So take this practice into your daily life. Do it not just when you feel inspired, but especially when you feel depleted. Let your visualization become your refuge. Let your emotional alignment become your anchor. And every time you return to that state, you strengthen the vibration of your dream. And in doing so, you step into a timeline that was waiting for you all along. Ready for the next part? Because now we'll explore how to build daily habits that reinforce this practice so you can live from higher frequency consistently, no matter what life throws your way. Now that you've witnessed the quantum principles, felt the power of observation, and practiced aligning your inner state with possibility, it's time to take the final step into becoming what you've already been learning about, your own conscious observer, not just in theory, but in everyday life. You are no longer a passive participant, drifting through circumstances or trapped by unconscious feelings and automatic reactions. You have discovered that your awareness is your co-creator. You have seen how your attention and emotional frequency collapse timelines toward your chosen outcomes. You have felt how visualization with emotional intention sets a powerful energetic signature. And today, you begin weaving those truths into the fabric of each moment. You start by recognizing that every choice, interaction, and thought is an opportunity to embody the observer. Before a conversation, set an intention inwardly. Notice your state before you speak. Begin your day with a moment of presence, not rushing straight into tasks, but pausing to observe the quality of your energy. Doing so is not a pause in making progress, it is the progress. When you notice a rush of emotion, anxiety, frustration, confusion, step back and observe without acting. You become the observer who sees the energy rising, rather than becoming swept away by it. Then each night, take a moment for reflection. Keep a simple note of what triggered you, what you felt, how you responded. Journal that alongside a moment of aligned visualization where you invite in a higher frequency for the next day. That practice reinforces your observer muscle. It builds your capacity to remain present, steady, and responsive. Meditation doesn't have to be an hour-long ritual. It can be 5 deep breaths between meetings, 3 seconds before responding, or a moment of embodied presence while brewing coffee. Every little pause you insert, every act of noticing without reacting, strengthens your neural circuits for presence and rewires your vibrational baseline. At first, this may feel unusual. You might forget, get caught in story again, or feel impatient that change isn't happening fast enough. That's normal. You're rewiring your mind. You're building new pathways, new habits of observation, clarity, non-reactive awareness. Imagine slow-motion weightlifting for your consciousness. Tiny, consistent lifts that over time create strength and stability. If you miss a day, just pause and reconnect. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Because real change happens not in heroic gestures, but in steady, conscious choice. You're not just learning how the universe works. You're learning how to work with it. And from here, everything begins to flow differently. You begin to move through life with quiet ownership. You engage relationships from a place of clarity. You make decisions from a state of alignment instead of anxiety. And you hold space for yourself and others with gentle awareness. That is embodiment. That is the quantum observer in action. You are no longer looking at your world as a spectator. You are living it with conscious presence. And now, as you carry this awareness into each day, let your inner observer become your guide, your anchor, and your creative force in the world. Even as you begin to live more consciously, resistance may still show up, not as a sign of failure, but as part of the path. You might notice yourself forgetting to pause in the middle of the day, slipping back into old habits, or questioning whether any of this really works. That's completely natural. You're not doing it wrong. You're simply experiencing the friction between old neural wiring and the new awareness you are now practicing. Remember, the shift is not about perfection. It's about consistency. When you forget to observe, notice that too. The moment you realize you've forgotten is also the moment you've returned to presence. That alone is progress. One of the most common challenges is the speed of life itself. In the busyness of work, relationships, and responsibilities, it's easy to forget to take even a few seconds to check in. But this is why small shifts matter most. You don't need to sit in silence for hours. You just need moments. One mindful breath before opening your phone. One pause before reacting to a trigger. One written line at the end of the day in your journal. These micro practices are like seeds planted in your nervous system. Over time, they grow into new patterns, new energy, and new results. Another challenge is doubt. Doubt in yourself. Doubt in this process, or doubt in what's possible. But the truth is, doubt only grows in the absence of repetition. When you practice something long enough, it becomes your new normal. So the more often you return to observing yourself and aligning your state, the more evidence you will naturally begin to experience. And with evidence comes trust. If you want to make it easier to stay consistent, try adding small supportive structures. You can place a sticky note on your mirror with a simple reminder like, choose your state. Set a daily alarm titled, pause and observe. Or join a group of like-minded people who are also practicing self-awareness. Community reflection strengthens personal embodiment. Think of this journey like building a new muscle. In the beginning, it may feel uncomfortable, slow, or awkward. But the more you lift the weight of awareness, the stronger your inner observer becomes. Eventually, it becomes natural to pause, to choose presence, to breathe before reacting, and to direct your attention with intention. It becomes easier to remember that your emotions are frequencies, your thoughts are lenses, and your body is the channel through which energy is expressed. And the longer you remain in this field of conscious living, the more your life begins to mirror that alignment back to you. There is a moment in every transformation where the shift becomes not something you hope for, but something you live. You stop waiting for proof and start being the evidence. You stop trying to manifest from lack and begin radiating from wholeness. And in doing so, your energy leads the way. So keep going. Keep showing up for yourself in small, consistent ways. Let your presence become your power. Let your observation become your way of living. You are not here to fix the world outside of you. You are here to master the world within. And from that mastery, your reality will naturally change. The more you live this truth, the more magnetic you become, not because you are trying to be someone else, but because you are finally being fully yourself. If this message helped you reconnect with that truth, tap the like button to amplify this frequency across the platform. Subscribe now if you want to stay in sync with weekly insights to strengthen your energy and awareness. And in the comments, drop an eye emoji or share the biggest realization that landed for you in this video. Your insight might be the reminder someone else needs. Let's grow this field of conscious living together, one observer at a time. You've always been the observer. Now you remember you're the creator.